Hello guys, my name is Srinivas Rao. I am a Python trainer. I have 20 years of experience both in project as well as in teaching experience. Okay. So, in the last session we discussed what is object, what is class, what are methods. A function in class is called methods, and how to create class, how to define, how to create objects, how to call the methods we discussed in previous session. And in this session we will be discussing about what is init method. We will discuss in detail about init method. We will discuss what is underscore. We discussed in the previous session, but once again we will discuss what is the init method in detail. In detail we will discuss, and also we will discuss about self variable. Every method there is one variable. The first variable is called self variable. About self variable in detail. In detail we will discuss. So, welcome to what is init method. See, init method is used to initialize the variables. It is used to initialize the attributes, or you can say variables, when you create the object. At the time of instantiation of the class, at the time of creation of object, these values will be initialized. So, this init method is used to initialize the value. That is why the name is called init and underscore. See, in the left hand side 2 underscores, in the right hand side 2 underscore. What is the mean of this 2 underscores before and after? We will discuss about this. So, in the last class we discussed how to create class. See, this class, this method or this function, this line number 4, 5, 6, line number 4, 5, 6 is called initialization. See, we are initialize these values. Okay. So, for example, see here we created one object here, std object 1, and we declared 3 variables here. In the init method we declared 3 variables: roll number, name and age. Means when you create this object, these values will be initialized with these variables. Example, see here, when you create the object, means when you execute line number 14, this 100 will be passed into roll number. When you execute line number 14, this method is called automatically, implicitly it will call, and this 100 will pass to roll number. It is initialized with roll number. And when you execute line number 14, this Rohit Sharma will pass to name when you execute line number 14, and when you execute line number 14, this 21 will pass to age. Okay. So, this method, this init method is called automatically, no need to call explicitly, implicitly it is called, and these values will be initialized with these variables. So, the value of roll number is 100, is initialized with 100, the name is initialized with Rohit Sharma, the age is initialized with 21. So, that is the concept of init method. Yes. Now, next thing, I want to call this method now. See, this method is called implicitly, automatically when you create the object, but how to call this method? How to call this display method? To call this display method, we use object name, dot notation and the method name. See here, for example, std obj1, press dot. When you press dot, what happens here? We will get the display method here. And run this. When you run this, from line number 16, the control goes to line number 8 and it prints roll number. What roll number? It prints string, this roll number string, and it prints self dot roll number, the value of self dot number. The value of self number is what? 100. This 100 will store in self dot roll number and it prints 100 here. Next Next line number 10, it prints string full name, then it prints the value of self dot full name. What self dot full name contains? It contains Rohit Sharma. Next, it will print age string, then it prints what? The value of self dot age, means this when you create the object, this 20 will pass to age now. So, this contains what? This self dot age contains 21. So, it prints 21. See here, when you run this, 1 minute, there is no std2. So, I will remove this. Yes, it is displayed, it is displayed. So, 2 times are there, let me only 1 time, I will call this 1 time. See here, 100, full name is Rohit Sharma, age is 21. I will tell you with the built-in class, I will tell you one with built-in class. Okay. For example, what will I will create this topic we discussed in previous session. What is my list? It is a list. Okay. How the data is stored in list? In the brackets, we will give in the brackets 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay. Right. Now, I want to know what is the type of list. So, what we will say? We will say print type of, there is a function called type, and we will give here my list. When I run this, it will tell you the data type of this my list. Now, when you run this program, see it is telling this the class of my list is list here. See, it is a list here. I will create one more list, for example, my fruits list, for example, my list 2, my list 2 equals to some, for example, 100, 200, 300 and 400, and also I will print the type of my list 2, the type of my list 2, and I will run this. Both my list 1, my list as well as my list 2 belongs to list class. So, it is nothing but, so here list is a name of the class, list is what? List is class name, and this my list 1, my list and my list 2, this my list, okay, and my list 2 are all objects. These are objects of list class. List is class name, and these 2 are objects. And now, I want to call a methods. For example, I want to add something in the list. I want to add 60 in my list. So, what will you do here? What will you do? Object name, my list, dot. When you press dot, we will get methods. So, append is what? A method or a function in that list class. So, for example, I want to add 60. So, 60 will be added. So, list is the name of the class, objects are my list and my list 2, and methods are, so many methods are there in that class, append method, insert method, so many methods are there. They are called method. Same way we will come to our class. Our class name is what? Our class name is student, and this is init method. What is this? It is a init method, and no need to call explicit, it will call implicitly, and display method we have to call by using dot operator. Object name dot display method, it will display all the student details of the first object. So, like this I can create another object. For example, I will create another object now, std obj2 equals to student, okay. For example, 101, okay. For example, Rakesh, okay. For example, 22. Now, I want to display second object details. So, I will say std obj2 dot display method and run this. When you run this, it will display second student details also here. Yes, okay. This is about class, object, methods, calling the methods. Now, we will discuss about in detail about what is this method. This method, already we discussed that this method, this INIT method is to initialize the values of this variables that declared in this init method. Means this method used to initialize roll number, name, age at the time of object creation. So, we will discuss in detail about what is this init method in detail. Right. So, this method. Which method? This init method is also called constructor. Now, what is constructor? Again, we will start with constructors today. Okay. So, the topic today is what? Constructor. What is constructor? Just a minute, just give me 1 minute. What is constructor? And how many types of constructors are there? Types of constructors. Types of constructors. What is constructor? Types of constructors. Constructor. Okay. So, what is constructor? This method. These constructors are used to initialize the object state. Already we discussed. Constructors are used to initialize the object state. The task of constructor is to initialize assign values to the data members of the class when the object of the class is created. Same like methods, constructor also contain collection of statements that are executed at the time of object creation. It is run as soon as the object of the class is instantiated. The method is to do any initialization you want to do with your object. Example, this underscore init is called constructor. Okay. This underscore init this init method or function is called constructor. And why use this constructor? Because to initialize the attributes or variables at the time of object creation. Constructor. Right. A constructor, what is init method in Python? A constructor class in Python is defined by using init method. The Python init is a reserved method. It is a reserved method that behaves like any other methods of the class, except the statements written under this definition is to only exclusively used for to initialize the attributes when object is created. Are used to initialize the data members of the class in Python. That is, it is basically contains the assignment statements. For example, please here, see in this only assignment statements are there. It should contain only assignment statements. Okay, it should contain basically should contain assignment statements. This method is called automatically, implicitly when at the time of class instantiation or object creation. Either you can say class instantiation or you can say object creation. That time when you create the object, that time this method, this constructor is called, automatically called. Okay, right? Now, how this works, how this constructor works? The Python init method is declared within the class, and it is used to initialize the attributes of an object as soon as the object is formed. This we already discussed. While giving the definition for init self method, a default parameter named self is always passed as first argument. See, whenever you define a methods in the Python, okay, in the class, so first variable, the first variable is self. We will be discussing about this self variable. What is the use of self? Why to declare self variable? This we will discuss. See, every method, the first variable contains self variable. So, we will be discussing about self. So, a default parameter named self is always passed in its arguments. This self represents the object of the class itself. Like any other method of class, in case of underscore init, also self is used as a dummy object variable for assigning values to data members of them. This we will discuss in detail. The init method is often referred to as double underscore init, okay, or I can say dunder it. Okay. So, this two underscores are also called dunder, is called dunder, D-U-N-D-R method, dunder method, D-U-N-D-R. Okay, dunder init, or it has two underscore on each side, in the front, in the back. Okay, in fact, these double underscores on both sides of init implies that the method is invoked and used internally in Python without being required to be called explicitly. So, any method in Python, if a method has underscore, okay, method, for example, any method, it can be init method, any other method. So, this will call automatically, no need to call explicitly. This method will call automatically when object is created, automatically, or we can say implicitly. It will call automatically or implicitly, but it is implicitly. No need to call explicitly. Okay, implicitly it will call. Right. Both the sides of init imply that the method is invoked and used internally in Python without being required to be called explicitly by the object. The Python __init method may or may not take arguments for object initialization. You can also pass default arguments in its parameter. However, even though there is no concept of constructor overloading in Python, one can still achieve polymorphism in case of constructors in Python on the basis of arguments. That we will discuss later. Okay. Yes. So, this is a syntax here. The syntax for defining a constructor or init method. See here, def __ init __ in the brackets, the first variable is what? Self. Here will assign the initial values to these variables. Right. Okay. For example, I will create one class now. This time I will not pass any argument. For example, class demo or employee, will take employee, class employee. Okay. See here, def __ init. Now, I will not pass any here, I will give default values, I will not pass any other variables here. Directly I will say self dot id, empid, employee id equals to 999. Next, self dot salary equals to some 50,000. Done. Okay. My class is created. Only one method called init method. Now, what I will do? I will create one object. So, obj1 for example equals to class name. As there are no attributes in the here, so no need to pass any argument. Okay. And directly I can print this id and salary. How? By using object reference. By using object reference, I can print the details of employee id and employee salary. So, object reference. How? By using obj1 dot empid and obj1 dot salary. Okay. So, I will print obj1 empid and also I will print obj1 salary. Right. Run, see 999 5000, like this we can print the variables in constructor. Right. Now, this method is called constructor. We already discussed this method. This init method is called constructor. And how many types of constructors are there? There are 3 types of constructors. One is parameterized, one is non-parameterized, and one is default constructor. Okay. Parameterized, non-parameterized, and default constructor. What are parameterized constructor? Example, I will go to this class, this student class. In this student class, see, this is called constructor. From line number 3 to line number 6 is called constructor or init method, __init method. And in this init method, there are 3 variables we declared. These are called parameters. We declared 3 parameters. At the time of object creation, we have to pass the values for these attributes or variables. So, this method, this constructor is called parameterized constructor. Why? Because here we declared 3 variables, 3 input parameters, 3 parameters, or you can say variables. So, this type of constructor is called what? Parameterized constructor, right. which when the constructor accepts arguments along with self, it is known as parameter constructor. These arguments can be used inside the class to assign values to the data members. Example this class, see there is one init method here in this family class INAT, and there is one attribute or one input parameter or variable called count. So, this is called what? A parameterized constructor. Or this example there are 3 variables inside this constructor. So, this is known as parameterized constructor, and we should, when you create the object, we should pass arguments. For example, 100 to the roll number, Rohit will to the name, and 21 will pass to age. This value will be initialized. So, this is called parameterized constructor. Now, second one, the second one is what? Non-parameterized constructor. When you have one constructor, but no parameters, no inputs to the this class while the creation of the object. So, that time is called, that type of constructor is called non-parameterized constructor. Example, see this example here. I will write one program, just a minute. I will write one program. For example, class demo indentation, and I will create one constructor def underscore in itself and print hello. For example, I will say print hello. See this constructor there is no parameters. So, this constructor is called non-parameterized constructor. And also what I will do, I will say one def greet, okay, def greet, okay, I will write some print good morning. Okay. So, this type of constructors, line number 3, this type of constructor is called non-parameter, because see there is no variables here, no, I did not declare any variables inside this init method. So, this type of constructors are called non-parameters. Now, what I will do, I will create the object. How? Please here obj equals to which class? And demo class, demo, bracket open, bracket close. Okay. Now, when you create the object, which is called which method is called automatically implicitly? This method is called implicitly, and when you run this program, it will print just hello. Okay. Now, I want to call this method. This method is normal method, and we should call explicitly by using object dot greet method. Now, this method is called, it prints hello and also it prints good morning. So, this type of constructor is called non-parameterized constructor. The third one is what? Default constructor. When a class do not have any constructor, when we do not write the constructor in the class, Python itself creates one constructor internally during the compilation of the program. It generates one empty constructor inside that has no code in it, okay, that has no code in it. For example, see here I will remove this one, I will remove this init method constructor. Now, what happens when you compile this program, okay, internally one constructor will be created, and this type of class is called default constructor. For this class there is no constructor, okay. So, default constructor will be created internally when you compile this program. Right, that is 3 types of constructors we have. Now, we will be discussing the last concept, that is self variable. Every method there is one variable called self variable. So, what is a self variable? We will see in detail. We will detail and see what is self variable. A variable which contains memory reference of the current object. Memory reference of the current object is known as self. Memory reference of a variable which has memory reference of the current object. Memory reference of the current object. A variable which has memory reference of the current object, okay, and that variable is called self variable. Self can be anything, it can be A, B, C, D also, but Python convention what we have to give a self. Self is not a keyword, it is a normal name, normal variable name. We can give anything, but by convention we should use self as the name of this variable. So, what is self variable? Again is a variable which contains memory reference. It is nothing but memory address. It is nothing but memory address of the current object, See, for example, what I will do here? For example, n1 normal variable 10 for example. What happens when I declare a variable n1 equals to 10? What happens in the memory? What happens? A block is created in the memory, in RAM, whatever, a small block is created for n1. When I say n1 equals 10, what happens? A block is created and the name of this block is n1. The name of this block is n1 and it has what? It has 10. So, it stores 10 here. So, not only name, not only the value, it is also having address. For example, assume we will say A10 for example, this is not correct, but we will assume A10 or A10 x1 hexadecimal, it will be stored in hexadecimal. For example, A10x1, assume the address of this n1. For example, I will say n2 equals to 20. What happens? One more block will be created in the memory and the name of this block is n2 and what it stores here? The name of this block is n2, it stores 20. It is also having address. This block also have address. Address is nothing but memory reference. Address, for example, A111 x2 something we will assume like this. Right. I want to know the address, for example, I want to know the address of n1 and n2. So, there is one function called id function. id function will tell you the memory reference of the particular variable. Okay. So, for example, I want to know print the address of n1 variable is comma id in bracket n1. It will tell you the address of n1. The same way I want to print the address of n2 also. So, control C, I will say control V and it will give n2 and I will run this program. It will tell you the address of n1 is something 7704 8024. The address of n1 is 7704 and the address of n2 this n2 sorry n2 variable is something called 8024. id will find out the address memory reference of the any object. For example, n1 is object, right? n1 is object, so it will tell you the address of n1 object, n2 object. Same way, so now what will do? I will create one class now. Class demo and I will create one def underscore init okay self. Right. Now, what I will do here? I will print the address of self. The address of self is comma. I can use f strings also. ID of self. Right. Then what I will do? I will come here. Okay. I have only one constructor, that is it, nothing, no other methods, only constructor, and in that constructor I printed the address of this self. Then what I will do? I will come here, obj for example, object equals to demo class. Now, I want to display the address of obj. So, I will say print the address of obj. Object object obj is comma id of obj. So, I am displaying the address of self and also I am displaying the address of obj, and what will do? I will run this. See, this method is called automatically, no need to call, because it is a constructor, and now also I am printing the address of id. So, it will print the address of self, it also prints the id of obj, and now please see the output. See, the address of obj is what? 44 2000, and what is the address of object? It is also same thing, both are same. So, self is nothing but memory reference of the current object. So, what is the current object here? Obj is the current object. So, what will be here? I will say obj1, obj1, and here also will give obj1. So, the address of self, the address of obj1, both are same. So, what is the meaning of this? The meaning is self is nothing but the memory reference of the current object. What is the current object now? The current object is obj1, right. So, now what I will do here? Now what I will do? I will create one more object, object 2. Object 2 equals to demo. Now what I will do? Here I will say object 2 here now. Now we will see again. See here, the address of self this time 11472. It is nothing but the reference of the current object. Now the current object is what? obj2. So, it print, see the address of object 2 and self. See, self is 11472 and object is current object. This is current object. The current object is obj2 now. So, it will print the current object's address. Yes, see the 44048, both address are same, means self is nothing but memory reference of the current object. So, a variable which contains memory reference of the current object is known as, that is self variable. Okay? Python self is not a result keyword, but it is best practice and convention to use variable as self. So, it is nothing but it is memory location, memory reference of the current object. Okay. For example, see here I will come to student class or employee class. We will take student class. Just a minute. Just give me 1 minute. Gonna. Okay. What will do? Class student. Again, I will create one class student in indentation def underscore init, and here I will declare one variable called roll number and name only this time. Okay. And what will do? I will initialize how? By using current objects roll number equals to instance variable name, okay, attribute or instance variable, self dot current objects name equals to name variable, right. Then what will do? I will say def display, okay, right. Now I will print the string what? Roll number. I will print this string roll number colon. I want to print current objects roll number. What is current object roll number? Current object is what? Self. Self is nothing but current object reference, memory reference, current objects memory reference and the value. Same way I will print name string, okay, colon self dot current objects name, okay, right. What will you now? I will create objects, for example, std1 obj equals to class name is what? Student, and here I will give roll number 100, for example Rohit, for example 21. Okay. So, when you execute line number 12, what happens? This 100 will pass to roll number and this Rohit will pass to name. We have only two variables. So, I have to pass 2 arguments, right. Now, current objects roll number is what? 100, current objects name is what? Rohit. Here it shows current objects roll number, that is 100, current objects name it stores Rohit. So, it prints current object's roll number, that is 100, current object's name is Rohit. Now, I will come here, object name, current object student 1 dot display. So, this current object is student 1. Okay. So, it will print this current object's roll number, current object's name. When you run this, yes. Now, what I will do? Now, what I will do? I will create one more object st2 obj equals to student class. Okay. This time I will give 200. Okay. I will give Virat. Okay. Then std this is second object dot display. So, when you execute line number 15, this 200 will pass to current object's roll number. Current object is what now? Second object, std2 object. So, here this time when you call this line number 15, self contains what? Self is nothing but current object reference. So, here it stores current object's roll number, that is 200, current object's name, that is Virat. It will display current object's roll number, that is 200, and current object's name is Virat. So, it prints current objects. So, self is nothing but memory reference of the current object. Got it? Right. Tomorrow in the next session, we will be discussing about class functions. Okay. So, if you like this video, please click on the like button and share our channel. Thank you very much.